In accordance with the Open Public Meeting Act of the State of New Jersey, adequate notice of this Wednesday, August 9th, 2023 remote meeting of the Franklin Township Trails Advisory Committee was posted on the township's website and electronically transmitted to the officially designated newspapers, indicating that this remote meeting would take place via Teams at 7 p.m. on Wednesday, August 9th, 2023. Okay. Tara, do you want to do the attendance?
Yes. And just to let everyone know that everyone knows you're being recorded. I started the recording. Okay. Okay, Vanessa Jones.
Present.
Anne Marie Arleski. Where is she? I saw her. Oh, she's here. I see you. Okay. Chuck Martin.
Here.
Jim Kolagowski.
Here.
Mark Fortin.
Here.
Mayor Kramer.
Here.
And Jignasha Patel is not going to be here tonight. She's going to be absent. And Christopher Gonda is not here.
He's trying to get in, though.
Okay. All right.
Okay. Let me pull back that agenda up. Okay. Can we have a motion to approve the June 2023 minutes?
So we don't have the minutes for June yet, so we're going to table them for this month.
Okay. Can we have a motion? Tara, do we have anybody for public comment?
No members of the public.
Okay. Then we can just go ahead and move on to our pathways and trails plan.
Okay, so I spoke with AT earlier today, and he is still working on making the changes to the maps that we had discussed. So he continues to work on that. As I get updated trail lengths, I've been adding them to the plan, and I sent you all again the final draft of where we're at. And really, once I can get the maps in there and the final trail lengths, I think we can be done with it with a final review. But I did tell him that we need to get, that it needs to be prioritized so that, we can finish it. The other thing I have been doing with the updated trails mapping is, for example, at the last meeting, Butler Road, we approved, I think it was approved in its entirety. So I did the paint blazes, I put the new map in the trails brochure, printed them and brought them to Butler Road. So as I'm able to, get the updated mapping done for the trails maps, I'm trying to, basically go and do what I can do with that information.
Great, thank you very much.
Oh, I'm sorry. And the tracking sheet. That was the other thing I wanted to talk about.
Yep.
So there are some trails that are outstanding that still need to be, the data needs to be gathered by walking those trails. So I had sent around, I think last week, an updated tracking sheet that shows what needs to be filled out. I'm sorry, not filled out. What needs to be mapped. What's done, what's going on there. So I don't know, did everyone have a chance to look at that? Yeah. So I'm not sure if you had a chance to fill in any. I can share it. Let me, hold on, let me get it here. Share. Okay. Yes. What am I sharing here? I'm sorry, give me 1 second. I just have to, my screen. Here we go. That's what I want. Okay. Can you all see that? The screen, the spreadsheet?
Yes.
Okay. So this is the updated trails mapping spreadsheet. So it shows what we're missing. So at the last meeting, we talked about the portion of Franklin Park Natural Area is not on the Bunker Hill. I did let AT know that, but from what I can see, it looks like we're missing a portion of the Brown Trail that goes to Franklin Park. That needs to still be mapped with the GPS mapping tool. In your spreadsheet here too, if you pull it up on your phone, for example, while you're out there, I put a link to the old map. as well as the new map. So this way you can see on the old map, this is the trail that we're talking about. This way you know what is actually missing. And I figured if it's in a Google Sheet, you can pull it up on your phone. So that's one area that's missing that we need to get done for AT. All of Butler Road is done. The DeMott Lane walking path is done. We're missing some of the maps at the environmental center, and we never had a previous map for that in-house. So I just put the new map. So if we can figure out exactly what's missing, we can get that done. Inman Park is done. All of John Clyde Memorial Native Grasslands Preserve is done. I did send our feedback to AT, and he has to make those changes before I can show you the next draft map. The Memorial Forest Trail we have not done, and that's maybe something to talk about because I'm not really sure exactly where that trail is. We are talking about improvements at Memorial Forest, you know, in the medium future, I would say. So maybe we want to think about what that trail is going to be. Middle Bush Park is completely done. The only thing, I'm sorry, it's not completely done. The Brown Trail, there's a piece missing, and I did walk that Brown Trail, but I'm wondering if it didn't get uploaded or something. So I can go back and do that. And then the sensory, I'm sorry, not the kids active area, that is a new trail that just hasn't been mapped, and it's very brief. So, you know, when I go back to redo Brown, I can do that as well. Naaman Williams Park, that trail is not done, but we can combine that with our site visit when we go for our grant work. Negri Napodi is completely done. And then there are trails at the Van Dyne Van Wickle house that we probably should include. And so I added those to the list.
Can anyone, am I heard by anybody?
Yeah.
We hear you.
Okay, great. Chuck and Diana and I walked Memorial Forest just to see what was going on trail-wise. And there were some markers, but you would have to take a leap of faith in some other places. So in terms of a trail, there are some markers. There is some brief outline of one. We could certainly walk that, what is there, and just kind of make up the missing pieces. Because
Okay.
otherwise it's not a, there are some missing pieces. Let me just say that.
Okay. Yeah, if you'd like to take on that one, that would be great. Can I write your name in there, Anne Marie, for now?
I will bravely say that you can write my name in there.
Okay. And I sent out, I think I resent out the directions on how to use the GPS app if you haven't used it in a long time. But if you get out there and you have any problems, you can always call me and I can walk you through it as well.
Okay.
Tara, you could put me down for the Brown Trail at Franklin Park as well.
Okay, great. If we're putting you down that you're going to do it, I'm just going to put it in a different color just so we remember.
Yeah.
You're going to do, Vanessa, the Brown Trail at Franklin Park. Okay. Great.
It is, just to let you know, I was going to say it later in my trail report, but it's very overgrown. So a lot of the Brown Trail from like where the farm stand normally is, back to where the treehouse is like, it's like you have to duck and everything is like caving in on the trail. So we're going to need to get someone out there with something electric to pull that all back.
Got it. Okay. I can make a note of that.
Can I just go back to Memorial Forest, because there's such big gaps in what you can see was once a trail.
Mhm.
I have the leeway to just be creative and kind of make the trail. I mean, there are gaps there. It's not.
Yeah,
It's a tough one.
I would say if you feel comfortable doing that, and then we can show the committee what you've mapped and we can kind of discuss there if that's, you know, any modifications should be made or anything like that. But yeah, I mean, I feel fine about that. It's, you know, if everyone else is good with it, I'm sure it's not a problem.
Sounds good.
Okay, and I said I would finish up the Middle Bush Park and the Brown Trail and the White Trail that we're gonna do. Before we move on to Van Dyke and Van Wickle, I have a question that seems to me, I think maybe I'm overthinking it, or it's gonna maybe sound like a weird question, but for the DeMott Lane walking path,
Yeah.
we completely mapped
I mean,
that.
it's
Do you think?
difficult because
Okay, can you guys hear me?
I can hear you, but I could not hear Anne
I can't
Marie.
hear anybody.
Oh, I think you're frozen too, Anne Marie. Oh, there you are.
Anne Marie, can you hear us now? Anne Marie, are you back?
I think she's working on the sound. Let's see here. Okay. All right. Uh-oh. Okay. Can you hear us, Anne Marie, or no? I think it looks like she's frozen. While she works on that, let me just ask you all. So for the DeMott Lane walking path, are you thinking that we should paint blazes like on the ground? Because there's some posts out there, but they're metal. I could easily paint them like as you walk. Or is it like a place, obviously it's really a pretty intuitive path. So I was just, what do you guys think about painting that?
Well, it's a concrete sidewalk.
Yeah.
I
don't think anybody will get lost.
I don't think anyone. Yeah, I don't think anyone will get lost.
Right. It's really just for continuity, unless it's just a waste of time, and then I just won't do anything.
Yeah, I mean, it would be nice just to indicate, maybe have some signs at the beginning, middle, end, just saying this is part of our trails, or this is the DeMott Lane Trail.
Right.
But
I know it, outside of the J&J building in New Brunswick, across from Rafferty's, they have they've marked this loop, and it tells you like quarter mile, half mile, something along those lines. Like that might be a cool idea, is to kind of blaze it we could mark it half mile, that half mile increments or something like that. That might be encouraging for people to use it.
Okay.
or exercise, exercise walking,
It's used.
and that's what people do. I mean,
Yeah, people do use it, yes.
Okay. All right. And hold on, I got to get back to where's my trails map? Here it is. Okay. And then the last one that's left out is the Van Wickle house. I was actually there maybe 2 weeks ago. I was meeting with Sue Ann from the Meadows, and we walked the trails back there. And I think they are really valuable to have in our plan. So what do you guys think about putting that in there, the trails there?
I worked on clearing that trail earlier this summer, and I agree with you. It's a valuable trail. As I was doing that, I spoke with Sue Ann, and she was concerned about the fact that the trail is with the hydrology in the area.
Right.
It gets wet and can be impassable at times. I think it's a nice trail. An Eagle Scout went in and put interpretive signs in the trail. I actually cleaned up the signs, but I did not. Yeah, I guess I got the plexiglass back on the signs as well, but they really need to be sealed against water intrusion and so on. But and it wasn't clear to me. I think I may have, when I was clearing it, I actually had to cut back shrubs and a number of overhanging multiflora rose and poison ivy branches and so on. I think it's clear now. Was it clear when you went out, Tara?
Yes, it was. Yeah, it was really nice when we went out and
It crossed the little bridge and
yeah,
went in back into the wooded area. And
Yeah.
it's a nice area, and you probably saw those interpretive signs. I think there's
hmm
one about
Yeah.
foxes and another one about other critters and so on. But there may be more to that trail. I just didn't get. I'm not sure I got all the way through, and whether it actually makes a loop to come back or not. But I remember having to cut through some pretty thick stuff.
Yeah. Well, maybe we at least do the boardwalk one because if you walk down from the boardwalk, you can get to the water, and then that one ultimately you can at least connect to East Ave. So maybe we can at least get that one in there. The other loop one is underwater a lot of times, so maybe if we can't add that one in, that's not a problem.
Well, I would recommend just calling it a primitive trail and that it's accessible under only certain conditions.
Got it. Okay. All right, so I think we have a plan moving forward. I am going to talk about the Van Wickle house a little bit under other business because I learned something afterwards that I couldn't get on the agenda in time. So when other business comes, we can talk about it in more detail. But for right now, this is where I'm like kind of stuck in terms of the pathways and trails plan is getting this mapping done and getting IT to finish the mapping so I can just put the appendices in. I mean, the text is basically done. There's a few numbers and things that have to be added in, but that's it.
Tara, I was just doing a quick look. I've been pretty busy the last few days. And the plan that you sent, it seems to me like it's missing a lot of the trail descriptions that we were working on.
Mm-hmm. Those yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
So no, I just don't know. Was it your intention to just simply compress that and put these descriptions in a different document, or how was that? How was that going to work?
The last time that we talked about the trail descriptions that you worked on, I believe we left it that there was still either they had to be reviewed. I don't think we ever got to a conclusion about it. So that section will be put in as soon as everything is completed and reviewed. I think there was still a few outstanding items, or I can go back and look at my notes, but I thought there was something you still said you wanted to add in. So as soon as that is done, I can add the entire section in.
Okay, I'll see what I can find. I've been sort of disabled here in the fact that the graphics card on my computer went out last month in the middle of negotiations with a bunch of lawyers, and I had to get a new computer, and I'm still struggling trying to migrate my files onto this. I still have not been able to get files from a cloud drive back on my computer, and I think that has some of the trails information.
Yeah. That's okay. I mean, because I think it's basically done. So as soon as you finish, I think there was just one or two little things that you wanted to finish up, and then I can just take the whole piece and move it in.
Okay, I'll try to get to it, but
okay.
Life's a little complicated right now. So
I get it.
You are juggling. Okay, so Tara, so it sounds like so Anne Marie's going to do Memorial Forest. I'm going to do Franklin Park. And we were talking about it sounded like you were saying you'd help with DeMont Lane.
No,
Okay.
I finished DeMont Lane. I'll finish Middlebush Park.
Oh, Middlebush. Okay. And so then we're still looking for somebody to do Van Wickle House.
Yeah, I mean, I have information about Van Wickle House that I could talk with you about now, or do you want me to just wait until other business? I just don't want to, because I didn't put it on the agenda because I didn't have a lot of time. Like I didn't have a lot of lead time to get it on the agenda.
Yeah, well, I mean, if we're talking about it now and it's on the agenda, it's a little
Okay.
segue, but go ahead.
Okay, so I met with Sue Ann from the Meadows and we toured all of the historic houses that the Meadows is kind of working on and that they do the maintenance for. So we were talking about a different topic, which is, you know, historic house things that need to be taken care of on the open space properties. But when I came back, I was thinking there's a few little things that we can probably work with her to get done, to like at least start going. So I found a grant and I asked Bob Vornlocker if I could apply for it. And it's basically to receive native plants because there's a garden at the Van Wickle house. And the garden there is just completely overgrown, and they would love to have it open because people do walk through there. So luckily we did get, it's not a money grant, it's plants. We actually got approved for up to 448 native plants for that area, the garden. So I told Sue Ann about it because here's the caveat. So here's where the caveat comes in. We got the grant. It's through the National Wildlife Federation. It's all native and pollinator plants. That'll also satisfy some of our criteria that we use for our mayor's monarch butterfly pledge. DPW can put the sign there. The issue is timing. So in order, basically they send you the plants, but they have to send them by September 30th. So there's weeding there that needs to be done in order to get it ready. And then there's the planting. I asked Bob Vornlocker about, you know, do you think DPW could do the weeding? And I need to first talk to Sue Ann to find out, are we talking about manual weeding? Because if we can use equipment, then yes, DPW can do it. But we don't have the manpower for DPW to manually go out there and weed this big garden, which I think is 100% understandable. So my question about the garden area, and Sue Ann hasn't gotten back to me yet. So I have been telling her I need, you know, to get your information on this. I will need to set up volunteers if we do accept the plants to at least do the planting. So that's what I wanted to kind of talk to you guys about. I think we can get volunteers from the meadows. But if anyone's interested in helping plant some of the native plants in the garden, once I figure out how we're going to get the weeding and stuff done first, then I can tell the National Wildlife Federation, yes, we'll accept the plants. We'll make it as close to the end of September as possible. And then, you know, that many plants, if I could get some volunteers from Trails and Open Space and Environmental Commission, and then maybe some Boy Scouts or Girl Scouts, I think we could do it.
Okay.
I mean,
What is the timeline for when they would give the, like, what months are we thinking?
So they have to, the real main requirement of getting the grant is that they have to ship them to you by September 30th. So it's a tight time frame. That's why I wanted to bring it up, because if it's not the weeding, it's going to be the planting that we need volunteers for. So if anyone on Trails is interested, I'm going to ask Open Space. I know people from Environmental Commission are interested to do the planting. Then I think maybe we can figure out the weeding. So, but it's
well,
a very, yeah.
I'd be interested in helping the planting. I haven't been there in a long time. How bad is that weed situation? Is it all weeds? Because last time I was there, and that was a while ago, it looked like there were some outlines of a garden there. But that's a huge number of plants. And do you get a list in advance of what plants you're getting? So you can you need to plan the garden before everyone gets there. That's the key thing. You can't just have mayhem.
Right. So part of the grant is they send us the plants, and we can say we don't want all 448. Maybe we only want this many, but they send us planting instructions, maintenance instructions, and they send a sample layout based on the types of plants that you're getting. So
that's great.
which is nice. So they send you all that. We can modify it, of course, if we think it's more appropriate, but they do give us the basis of what we need, which is why when I saw it, I'm like, wow, this is a great grant because it's not money, but they're sending us what we need. The only thing we need to figure out is the manpower. Now, in terms of the weeding, Anne Marie, it really needs weeding. There is a path that goes through the garden, and it's beautiful. It really is beautiful, but it's basically needs to be completely weeded. If Sue Ann thinks that we can get in there with equipment, then it sounds like DPW can help us, which would be excellent. If we can't, then that's maybe something I need to discuss further and see if we can, if we can even do this,
Right.
How big is this garden? I didn't think it was that big.
It's not that big. It's really not, 448 are going to be way too much. We're not going to need probably to take all 448 plants, but that's the level of plants that we got approved up
Why don't we
to.
go out and measure it, first of all, because then they're gonna give you a plan based on the measurements.
Yeah, well, I sent them an aerial photo and that's what they based their 448 plants off of.
Oh, really?
So, but I agree with you, Chuck. When I saw that, I was like, oh, I think there's no way we can get 448 plants in here, but we'll absolutely measure it. The main thing is, before I talked to Sue Ann, I figured it would be great if I could tell her, hey, don't get stressed out, because there are a few people that are willing to volunteer. Because I could, they're an organization that they do a ton of their own manual labor and volunteer time. So I figured if for some reason there was no one interested in volunteering, then I could say, hey, maybe this is with the tight time frame and everything, it might be difficult.
This is something that she'd wanted?
So when we were doing the tours of the houses, one of the things that she pointed out was this garden is in such bad shape. We really need help weeding it. And we would love to replant it because people, she said, do walk in that trail all the time and walk around the property. And she would love to, bring it back.
It's a nice little path, yeah.
It is.
Is there any possibility there'd be people to help maintain it after it's planted?
So there's a caretaker that lives in the house, and they do pay their caretakers to do things like mow the lawn, water plants.
Okay.
So yes, there is a caretaker that lives there, and even besides the caretaker that lives there, Sue Ann and the other members of the Meadows, they really are the caretakers of the, that kind of property.
Okay. Well,
Okay.
I would
I
like
mean,
to help. I'm not sure the
that's-
date will be exactly, but if it all works out, I'm interested in helping.
Okay.
Yeah, Tara, if it has to be done manually, what type of gear, like pitchforks or, something to break the ground? How bad is the weeding, or how deep are the
Yeah,
weeds?
if we have to do it manually, we're going to definitely need things to break up the ground for sure. So what I'm hoping is that she'll say, oh yeah, absolutely, we can use power equipment back here. I'm hoping that she says that, because if she does, life will be much easier.
And my mom lives like on New Brunswick Road near Demont Lane, so not far from there at all.
Okay.
And she likes to refer to her car as a shed on wheels, because
Okay.
she's constantly transporting tools because she's the main volunteer at my school garden.
Aw.
So anyway, so if we need to borrow some shovels and things like that, I'm sure I could help with that.
Does
Okay.
Public Works have, I would imagine that Public Works has a rototiller,
Yes.
which is probably best approach, just to go in and rototill
Yeah.
the area.
I think,
and do
I
like
hope,
a
yes.
rototiller. And
I hope so too. I do need to get, I need to talk to Sue Ann and make sure that they don't have any objection to bringing the equipment or whatever out there. I don't think she would, but I haven't heard back from her yet. So I'm hoping I hear something soon.
So Tara, looping this back to the mapping, are you thinking that this might impact the mapping? Is that?
Well, so to bring it back to the mapping, what I was thinking is that, especially because this grant has a timeline associated with it, it has to be done basically by the beginning of October. While we were out there, planting, we could easily map that area. I mean, that would not take a long time at all, and we could
Right.
so we could combine it, and then the trail in that garden, even though it's a small trail, we could reference that, that it's an existing trail. Right now, I would never reference it as an existing trail because it's so overgrown.
Okay. So we could do it while weeding potentially. Okay.
We could do it while weeding. And like I said, it's another project that really kind of like hits a bunch of, it'll help with the trails mapping. It'll help with it's a pollinator garden that we can use for our Mayor's Monarch Pledge. So I think, and it'll help with, we're trying to work with the Meadows on some historic preservation properties that are in need of certain types of maintenance and upkeep. So that's like one project that I figured, we could get done. So.
Okay. Great. Maybe we can tap into, some of our Girl Scout, Boy Scout groups as well.
Yeah. Okay. Sounds good. So no one, I would
Yeah,
say no one go do that mapping yet until we figure out if we're going to do this. Because if we're going to do it while we're there, then we could just do the mapping there. So I guess that's why I looped it in. I wouldn't
Yep.
go out of your way to do that one just yet.
That makes sense. Okay, next item on our agenda is the site plan review.
So no site plan review for this time at, the last environmental commission meeting was Monday. And, most of what we had to review were actually just resubmissions for commercial or warehouse or restaurants. So there was nothing that involved trails for that. And then the meeting before that, we actually had nothing on, which was that very, very rarely happens, but so nothing at this point.
Okay. Chris, are you still with us, Chris?
He was here.
I
Yes,
see
I
you.
am still
Oh, there
here.
he is.
Can everyone
Okay.
hear me okay?
Yeah.
I am present.
So the next item on our agenda
right.
is the regulations for and use of e-bike on trails.
Okay.
Are you ready
So,
to present that?
no, based on my hardware difficulties, I'm actually logged on through my phone. I'm not able to present from here. I did send the slides to Tara, but I think
Okay.
you've seen them before. They have been updated since then. I mean, if you want me to run through them real quick, if you wouldn't mind changing slides for me. If
Yeah,
not,
sure.
we can skip that and do it next meeting.
No, I have him here. So if you want, let me just pull them up.
Okay.
Okay. And now hang on, gotta share. Okay. Share screen.
So
Okay.
it's coming up just to refresh where we're coming from with this presentation. There's just some discussion about whether we would be able to use electric bikes or other mobility devices on our trails. And I did some digging. I was able to look into the state regulations that had changed within the last 12 months and put together some resources in case the council or mayor, if we wanted to get together an ordinance about how they may or may not be used on the trails. So we'll do the next slide, Tara. And this is just the divine, I'll be throwing this word around frequently, and I'm sure you've heard it by now, but it is something that that's becoming more of a buzzword in transportation, that's micromobility. So you can imagine any smaller, lighter, low-speed transportation device. So even traditional bicycles that we're all familiar with, or traditional scooters, would be considered and categorized as micromobility too. So we've listed bicycles, e-bikes, electric scooters, similar to those scooter share scooters that they use over in New Brunswick, electric skateboards, which have no hands on them, but are powered and steered by the user, and shared bicycles and scooters. Next slide. Now, the Voorhees Transportation Center at Rutgers at the Blaustein School compiled a new toolkit, essentially, for municipalities to develop language for how they wish to regulate them. So this is just a quick rundown of the state's 3 categories. When we initially had these discussions, they were primarily about the electric bike classes, and that's class 1, class 2, class 3, depending on how they're controlled. The state decided that because the language can be so confusing, they wanted to put them into these 3 categories. So you may read in magazines or other literature still using those class 1 through 3 bikes, but the state decided to clarify that in regard to what's being used and how they'll be referred to in the state, just to make it easier for local governments to define their own laws. Now the classes that I had mentioned, those were defined by the manufacturers, and that's why it got so confusing. So the state went and decided that the low-speed scooters would operate this way and have these max speeds and have these recommended regulations and where they may or not be used. So the 3 classes are low-speed electric scooters, low-speed electric bikes, and motorized bicycles, and we'll go through each type just briefly. Next slide, Tara. So a little bit more about that new e-bike and e-scooter law. These are just the benefits of using those type of mobility devices. And why that concerns us is because some of our trails help connect communities. Now, for example, the Delaware Canal State Park and the towpath connects many communities along that trail and route, and that's regulated by the state, so it's not as much of a worry to us. But we might want to think about where these our trails connect and what type of vehicles may be used on them. All right, so next slide. So the first type we'll be talking about is the low-speed electric scooter. So these can be sold in the big box stores like Target and Walmart, and they can be electric powered, where you just charge them in your home and use the throttle and stand on the device just to take it where you want to go. And they're pretty simple to use, except I mean, for a lot of us, we grew up with bikes or manual scooters where you would just power them yourselves. But now with a twist of your wrist, this thing can take you, up to 19 miles per hour. It's not something that many of us older generations have too much experience on, but they are becoming useful in other municipalities and cities. Next slide. And I can tell you, for my commute from Briggstown all the way down 27, I'm seeing them more frequently as years go by, because the folks that live along that corridor are seeing them as a pretty useful way to get around, to whether it be to the bus stops along the highway, etc. Okay, so we have low-speed electric bicycles, and that's what we're more concerned on in regard to the Trails Committee, because we're seeing more of these on our trails. And I know Mark, as a cyclist, has probably seen a few of these too, where they are bikes. They look like bikes. You sit on them, and when you pedal, it gives you a little bit more of an extra boost to get you up hills or just to go a little bit faster where you're going. So this is the next type of electric micromobility device within these categories. And there are two classes. Like I said, a lot of these classes are defined by the manufacturers, where you have pedal assist, where when you pedal, it gives you an extra boost, but there's also a throttle motor assist as well, where you don't have to pedal. And because of the battery charge on the motor, all you have to do is hit a button or twist your wrist, and it will accelerate for you. And next slide, please, Tara.
When you hit that, I'm
And
just
the last
wondering, can I just ask real quick about that? I'm not, I don't think I understand that, only because I don't ride like a bicycle too often, but you're
Okay.
saying, can this type of bike, you actually don't have to pedal? If like, can you continually throttle it, or at some point you have to pedal? I'm just wondering.
Well, if you can throttle it on its own, and it'll get you up to speed on its own, you don't necessarily have to pedal. Yeah. So even with these low speed electric
Yeah,
bicycles,
that's what I was,
yeah, the
okay,
pedal is not
thank
needed.
you. Got it, okay, thanks.
But they are just significantly lower power than the next type. So the next type are higher powered vehicles, which are motorized bicycles. So sometimes referred to as class 3 e-bikes, as I mentioned. They can be gasoline powered, similar to the mopeds that a lot of us have, and dirt bikes that we've grown up with. And they can achieve much higher speeds, 20 to 28 miles per hour, if not more. But they are required, users are required to have driver's licenses and registrations through the Motor Vehicle Commission and insurance to be able to use those devices. All right, next slide. So those are our three types of electric vehicles that we commonly see in the state. Now, the new e-bike and scooter law regulates these types differently. Low-speed e-bikes and e-scooters are regulated like bicycles. So just like traditional bicycles, these are the regulations that they encourage you to promote. Now, as for sidewalk riding, we don't have any spaces in Franklin Township where sidewalk riding is prohibited, so it's not as much of an issue for us. But we would want to consider that off-road trails generally do not allow motorized bicycles or mopeds on our trails. And I think that the same is the current ordinance in Franklin Township. Anyone can correct me if I'm wrong there. But we may allow e-bikes and e-scooters as we do normal bicycles and traditional human-powered bikes. But the state is...
Most of our trails, we have restricted use of these devices on our trails. I mean, they're actually signs.
Yes, Chuck,
We don't have any trails.
you're right. I misspoke. So they're not limited from being used on our sidewalks. But as for the trails, Chuck is right. Most of our trails, there are no bikes or scooters or electric vehicles permitted on any of them, or traditional bicycles on. There are very few trails where they are allowed. But as for sidewalks, there are no regulations there. But you can consider in downtown New Brunswick, there are scooter and bicycle regulations to keep them off the sidewalks in the downtown areas, but not in the rest of the community. All right, but again, just to reinforce, it is up to the municipalities and cities, boroughs, townships, how they wish to regulate them as an as needed basis. All right, so we'll go to the next slide again, please. And this is just more information about Title 39 and how they're regarded as vehicles and how they may be operated on bicycle paths, but it's really up to the local government to regulate what's desired and what's not in their spaces. All right, next. And this says pretty much what I just said, and shall not be used on the trails where they're not allowed. All right, next slide again. So I have included links within the presentation, which Tara can share and post publicly. This is the city of Hoboken. It's widely promoted in the state as model language because it refers to the newer bicycle laws. There are some parts that may be updated, but essentially it's setting the standard as they've had most success with safety in the city of Hoboken in regard to eliminating traffic deaths. So that's why for the bicycle and pedestrian advocacy world, the city of Hoboken is just regarded higher in regard to how soon they were able to release their ordinances and what those ordinances are. So moving on, just some additional information. There's plenty of data compiled by advocacy organizations like People for Bikes on electric bicycle policy adoption. Next slide. And here's an entire spreadsheet by the Department of Interior on national and historic parks and how these electric vehicles may be used on trails. A sample is within New Jersey, how e-bikes are allowed at Thomas Edison National Historic Park. I believe this is in one of the oranges, where they promote that these bikes may be used where traditional bicycles are allowed, not including the motorized bicycle class. All right, and next slide. And we had gone through this before. It's ultimately up to the locality and the local government how they wish to promote or prohibit these in our spaces. Next slide, please. And this is just more information compiled by People for Bikes and Policy and Law if we're not satisfied by what we have seen in Hoboken, as their spaces look vastly different from Franklin Township. And they do offer also model e-bike legislation, which we may reference in the future. And lastly, People for Bikes also has mountain bike specific regulations for off-road use and trails, and which I think we can reference if we do decide to prohibit motorized bicycles in some of our spaces. But I'll allow a few moments for questions unless we'd like to wait until the end of the meeting.
Questions?
So-
Okay.
One question I have, Chris, so thinking about our DeMott Lane Trail, for example, and I'm not saying we should have e-bikes on there or not. I'm just wondering what's like the thinking behind that in terms of micromobility. Is that like from a micromobility standpoint, because it does link you to Easton Avenue, it's an alternate means of transportation. Is that like although technically, I don't know if it's considered a sidewalk. For some of it is, for not all. So what's like, how would we treat something like that, do you think?
Let's see, if we were to promote the uses on it, I don't think there would be any problem to say that e-bikes or e-scooters are allowed there. Um, the Yeah, I don't see any downsides to that.
Okay.
Especially if that's the best route to the bus stops as a last mile route.
Yeah, I'm just wondering because I mean, I'd really have to think about that and see, when there's e-bikes, is there a separate, not like a bike lane, but is there a section of the trail that you can make for bikes or, just for bikes, like the way you have a bike lane? I mean, you don't have to answer it now because I know we have to think about it, but I'm just wondering.
Not necessarily. I mean, throughout the state, they promote that if you're going to ride a bicycle on a trail or path, you should keep right except to pass.
Mm,
So I don't think it would disrupt the flow of, even on sidewalks. So I don't think it'll disrupt the flow of what's already happening out there, especially since we do see them, but they're not crowding our streets. And thankfully,
mhm.
in our township, we haven't seen them terrorizing our
Yeah.
sidewalks or anything like that. But
Okay.
I mean, there are street spaces where you might want to consider that if these vehicles are being used in the streets, then this is how we would want them to be used.
Got it.
One of the, we've actually been engaged in discussions about bikes on trails for quite some time. Diana and I have, for example, not only here, but down in Florida. One of the problems is that bikes tend to, hikers tend to see bikes as a hazard to them. And one of the big problems is simply that bikers do not give warning when they're passing, coming up from behind on a hiker. And in some cases, people have been hit and injured because a biker, yells on your left, 5 feet from a novice walker, and the first thing the walker does is try to figure out which way's left, and many times what happens is that they crash right into the bike, so in a way it would be useful if the biking community could at least get informed that they should notify hikers at an adequate distance and in an adequate direction before they pass them. And the problem with the Class 3 e-bikes, I know with respect to the canal, is that they've been restricted on the canal towpath simply because they're actually they can go higher than 28 miles an hour, I believe. And they pose a considerable danger, particularly when they're being handled without being respectful of the hikers themselves. So, but I think e-bikes are great, but they really are a nice solution to many of our transportation problems that we're encountering as our populations increase. But it seems to me like some type of instructions or regulations ought to be put in place with respect
They
to
don't belong on trails.
this.
Don't.
And Diana, you're probably hearing Diana in the background here.
Public comments are
Some
welcome.
public comment here. But as far as our trails go, I believe our policy has been that we do not want them on trails. First of all, in the areas where there are wildlife protection areas, because they tend to disturb nesting birds during nesting season. And secondly, because they tend to rut up the trails and damage the trails. So I don't know. I don't think we've done a very good job of posting our regulations on our trails. There are signs at Negri Napodi about no motorized vehicles. But I know that Anne Marie has also observed people, biking on the trails, and apparently they were started tearing up the trail. Is that correct, Anne Marie?
There was the regular bicycles, the motorized bicycles, and there was also those kids coming in from the side there, the public property.
Mm-hmm.
But I haven't seen that rutting problem since, so maybe, and it's also it's also posted at Negri. There's
Right.
2 signs, no bikes, no pets, and then there's also no motorized vehicles in a separate sign. So we kind of have everything covered there, but
Yeah.
people
Yeah.
don't.
Well,
read.
I agree, Chuck, with what you said about, and I think a lot of people would probably agree about the e-bikes on any trails, like what the legislation that Chris showed said about, on natural tread or in areas where there's wildlife, like that doesn't make sense. But my original thought, I'm literally just thinking out loud. I'd have to really flesh this idea out in my brain. But from doing the health assessment, the biggest comment we got was that it's so hard for people that don't have a car to get in and around Franklin Township. And I'm thinking of maybe not e-bikes necessarily, but when you brought up, Chris, about the shared bikes, I mean, that DeMott Lane walking path somewhere around there might be a great spot for at least those shared bikes that you can get on and off, because it does take you right between Amwell and Easton Ave. So I'm just kind of like getting ideas in my head, but I agree. I don't think we would ever do that at Negri Napodi or John Clyde Grasslands, a place like that.
Forested trails are so narrow that it really would be hazardous for the
Right.
bikers as well as the hikers.
Right.
Yeah, I agree with those wildlife preserves and protecting everything that's there. I wouldn't promote them on spaces that we're not already promoting them.
Right.
But, we're also looking at our bike trails on our highways here in the township, and that's something that I think would be quite useful in terms of transportation issues that I'm sure you're more experienced with, Chris, than I am, in terms of moving people around and so on. I mean, maybe we ought to encourage e-bikes on our streets and highways, our marked bike trails on our streets and highways.
Okay.
I know
Well, I think
we keep talking about DeMott Lane, but isn't JFK the same situation?
it is. The only reason I'm thinking about DeMott Lane off the top of my head is because I mapped it. And so it's like a mapped trail that we have a map for right now. And I'm just thinking the township municipal building is there, the library, a lot of places that actually someone without a car, the senior center, a lot of places that someone without a car probably could really find useful. So that's why it came to my mind right away. But you're right, JFK, that's another opportunity, not an existing paved trail, but yes, absolutely another opportunity.
Yeah, no, I spent years running cross country doing New Brunswick Road, JFK, cutting through the other side of DeMott, looping through there. So to me, like they're mirrored images. So yeah, we might want to, I might think about mapping JFK too.
Yeah.
Yeah, just to show that we have a promoted network of car-free spaces where people can ride, with their families and things. Maybe people will sit on the benches on DeMott. But in any case,
a lot of people do.
Yeah. So we can have these. If it's and if people see that electronically, that it connects this network within town, that could be attractive.
Yeah. I'm going to do some digging into just looking to see, because that kind of spawned an idea for me, and maybe not every idea works out, but I think that is a interesting idea.
Now, Chuck, you were saying that the towpath does not allow them, correct?
That was the latest that I had gotten from work that we do at the canal, and I don't know whether that's a state park policy or whether that was specific to the DNR canal.
Okay.
And
There's signs.
there
There are no signs.
there are no signs
Yeah.
on any of our canal entrances in Franklin and as elsewhere, as far as I know, saying that you cannot have e-bikes on the towpath. And I understand that they are
Yeah.
getting on there, and there are some people that are disturbed, and there's some people that really like them. So
Yeah, I feel conflicted. Like as the, as a trails person and naturalist, like I don't want them. But for the mobility accessibility and like the fact that the towpath is such an amazing link from New Brunswick to Franklin to Princeton, I could see for health accessibility issues, I would see the advantage of that, but I can't stand when they blaze by me in the towpath. So,
Right,
Yeah.
right.
yeah.
Good point.
Yeah, they should be handled with some, form of etiquette and common sense, right?
Right.
But yeah, so I mean, I don't know if there's any signage or anything developed to promote, how to properly pass people, and because the law is there for motorists to slow down and move over for non-motorized vehicles that are in even active transportation and micromobility users. They slow down, move over, and pass with care. Essentially, the same thing should be done on our trails with, vehicles that are powered, whether they're human powered or. But in any case, I'll have to see if there's any type of signage or anything that could be helpful. But moving forward, how would the committee like me to proceed? Do they want to see what a draft ordinance would look like? Mayor, I don't know what the next steps would be, or if we wanted to think of promoting certain spaces before we even get to that point.
Well, you guys could come up with a resolution of where you think it would be appropriate to have bikes.
Okay.
And I guess you'd be saying all other trails are be considered not appropriate.
I think
Okay.
that makes sense. If we, and Chris, maybe you and I can work on that together. We could try and identify some trails that would be appropriate, or even if it ends up only being one trail that we work on, or, maybe we
And I think-
can kind of start there.
And I think it would also be appropriate that we have a council discussion item and you give a short presentation on the classes of bikes and their
Mhm.
capabilities. Because I didn't know what you said today. I'm sure the rest of council doesn't.
Yeah, I'm open to attending a meeting and presenting whenever they'd like to have me on their agenda.
Yeah, whenever you go, once you put in, if the Trails Committee makes a resolution, it's presented to Bob Warnlocker, it'd probably go to land use, and then if they think it's reasonable, it could come before the whole council, and you I'd ask you to present.
Okay. Great. Thank you, Chris. I think that was really helpful.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, and you're welcome. And just something else that's happening in the region is Perth Amboy had reached out to me for similar information because they just launched their first bike share program along the waterfronts, but their laws restrict them from certain times and certain spaces where they shouldn't be used. So they're redoing ordinances to allow more of that type of use along the waterfront. But they can be different. They can be regulated to be used at different times and based on when commuting is happening and when people are using for recreation. But in any case, yeah, thank you for hearing my presentation.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chris. Next item on the agenda is a memorial plaque for the Melba Batten Trail.
So I have been working with, I spoke with Safi Callan, our special project manager, and she has some vendors that she worked with on plaques in the past. So I worked with them. His name is Gene, and he's very helpful. So I only got one estimate back of the two that I asked for. So I kind of asked for a sign, like a street sign almost, and then a plaque for a rock. So I'm still waiting on the plaque on the rock, but I wanted to just show you the quote. And OSAC is not meeting this month. They're meeting in September. So we have, time to talk and everything. But since I have it, oops, forgot to share my screen. You can't see what I see. Hang on. So one idea at this point is, let me get to a picture of it. It would look like that. It's this signpost, and it would basically go over the trail with the plaque hanging from it. And, it would basically say we have to think of the language, but it would say the Melba Batten Memorial Trail or whatever we choose. This is now, again, I'm still waiting on another estimate from him and hopefully one more even after that. So I want to get a few different things, but a streetish sign like this is in the range of $2,100 for this sign and everything. A plaque is much less. I just don't have the estimate from him yet. And I tried to get it today before the meeting, but he didn't have it ready yet. So I did find a nice one. I thought a good example. I was at a park in Hillsborough, and they had dedicated a sensory garden to someone's memory. And I found a beautiful rock there with the plaque on it. And I sent him those photos. So I'm just waiting to get that estimate. But since this came in, I figured, share it.
Tara, let me know about that rock with a plaque that might be appropriate for my mother's street.
Oh, I will. Yeah, absolutely. I saw a beautiful one, and the interesting thing that Jean told me too, and this is only because of my inexperience, I thought that the plaque came on the rock already. And he said no, most places I guess like the town will get a boulder. They'll like find one down by the river, they'll order a boulder from a landscaper, and then they affix it to the rock.
Oh.
So not that that's impossible, but that's what he said. So I'm assuming that, but I'll let you know I'll send you the quote too. I'm assuming that's going to be much less, but I figured, maybe we should look at a sign like this too, just to get the thoughts. So what do you guys think? And again, this is just one of a few quotes. Is this the type of thing you had in your mind when we talked about a memorial trail, or were you thinking more of like the plaque and the rock?
I was thinking of neither, to be honest. I was thinking like the John Clyde Jr. Trail, where it's named after them, but not that there would be, I'm not opposed to it, but it's just not something that occurred to me. To me, the honor is to have the trail itself named after you. And then the marker, like the trail marker, would have, your name on it, but not like a special sign.
Okay. Got it.
I was just kind of going off of the John Clyde Jr. Trail.
Right. That's true. That is true. So the John Clyde Grasslands Preserve, like the whole preserve, when it's named after John Clyde, the sign was changed, but it doesn't have a fancy plaque or anything. We do have some, I guess there are some spaces that have more of a plaque that dedicates it to a person. But yeah, just some thoughts. I really like the rock, but I don't know.
Yeah, rocks are nice, but so the idea is to designate the crushed shale trail at Negri as the Melba Batten Memorial Trail. Is that? Or,
yes. And to loop in, which is further on the agenda, but to loop the whole thing in is while we have the momentum going, I want to present some types of estimates for the bird blind for Melba, because I also thought, that bird blind could be included on her memorial trail, and, fixing it is it's great to fix it now while we're trying to memorialize the trail. So I think it's a good way to get some of that work done. And Chuck has been working on it, and I know Chuck, before the next OSAC meeting, maybe because Chuck was looking to see, can it just be repaired? Do we need a new one? So he's doing the work on that. So we'll have more information on that, but maybe if we have to redo a part of the bird blind, maybe putting a plaque or just a sign on the bird blind would be nice.
Well,
I think so.
I did report to OSAC about the blind, and in a way, it's sort of hard to say what to do about it. I mean, as I told the OSAC committee, First of all, the blind is sort of in the wrong place.
Mm-hmm.
And it's because it's not the area where the wildlife and the pond are. And the other thing is that the blind itself is, if you just want to keep it in its original shape, it just simply needs some sheathing at this point. I think most of the structural timbers are intact, and you know, and Public Works did replace the flooring on it. The main problem with the blind is that it doesn't give a good view of the pond. Part of the problem is that the pond is filling up with cattails.
Right.
And cattails need to be actually taken out of the pond because they will just literally overgrow it, and then you'll just have a marshy area just full of cattails, and it's not really conducive to the kind of wildlife I think that people would like to have there. The other possibility is creating a different type of blind, more sophisticated, perhaps, but with a nice bench inside or whatever. But
Yeah.
I think that's up to people to decide what they really want to do with this blind and the level of sophistication and that they want to put into it.
Well, I have it on the agenda for open space for the September meeting, so maybe we can talk about that there and see what their thoughts are in terms of the blind. But it would be great if I could give them a recommendation about, we've already recommended the trail be named after Melba. That's been, approved by open space. It just has to be done as we get closer to it by council. And once I have an idea about the plaque and the blind, I'd kind of like to get all of it in one package deal if possible, because I think it'll kind of get it going. So I guess the first question is, what do you guys think about this type of sign that I showed you for Melba? Is this something that we're even interested in as a memorial, or are we really looking for a less expensive, smaller kind of, nice plaque?
Yeah, I think that, something nice and frugal, like if something nice that's more frugal, that makes sense. We're also, once again, kind of talking the whole setting precedent. I don't know, where we want to go with that, but I mean, the nice and expensive sounds good to me.
Okay. So I'll get the second quote. I think the plaque on the rock would look nice and it would look very natural there.
Mm-hmm.
And it'll be less expensive. So let me wait for that quote to come in then, and we'll discuss it at the next point.
Yeah.
The next thing is the bird blind. I mean, do you guys have any opinions based on what Chuck said? Like, do you think we should just fix up the bird blind that we have, or would you like to see it move? That's a larger project. That's a larger, more long-term project, moving it, or do we want to repair it?
Chuck, where were you thinking of moving to if we moved it?
Well, actually, the other end of the other side of the pond, near the shallower area where all the wading birds are, where they all hang out.
Is the trail over there?
Yeah, you go past the pond dam, and the trail turns right.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah,
it's sort of a marshy area in there. I mean, you really almost need to put in a platform, I think, with a blind to do that. But and the other thing that's filling out the pond are willow trees, and the willows are probably going to be a problem as well in terms of actually seeing stuff. So
So we have kind of two issues. One is the bird blind and one is the preservation of the pond.
yeah, well,
Right.
it really is, but they go together. In fact, that the blind is the structure that you use to observe the pond. And so
So I guess the question is, when I discuss this with OSAC at the next meeting, which again is not till September, is it appropriate to say that there are two options? One is going to be a little more intense. One is going to be a little more simpler, maybe, and that here's what it is and here's the benefits of both. Does that make sense?
Yeah, they're the ones who know Melba the most.
What happened?
Talking about Melba's sign, right?
Yes.
yes,
I mean, the open spaces where she was, they know her the most. They may have their own thoughts.
Right. True.
yeah, and your plaque on a rock, I think it's a nice feature. But and you just need to think about what size plaque or what size rock
Mm-hmm.
you want to use for that. I mean, for example, there's a rock and a plaque at the Marconi Memorial at the corner of JFK and Easton Avenue, which that's a big rock and that's a big
Yeah,
sign.
no, I wasn't
and
thinking
it's not.
that. I was
On the other hand, there's a sign that's a part of the memorial tree that John Luce put in for his son right at the base of the tree, which is actually rather small. The problem with the small signs, with that one in particular, and also with the one at the John Clyde Jr. Memorial Trail, is that Public Works keeps mowing over the damn signs.
Yes, I was thinking bigger than that, smaller than Marconi, for sure. This is the one I saw at the Hillsborough Park, and I thought it was really nice. It's hard to tell the scale from here, but it's like basically larger than the one for John Luce and John Clyde Jr. It's on a nice rock. And they had it was large enough that when I walked by it, it's on the ground. Like it caught my attention.
I mean, you place the memorial rock right below the kiosk,
Right.
or you could actually the other thing you do is just carve letters on the kiosk. That's Melba Batten Memorial Trail.
Yeah, I even liked what it said here. It says now, you can't see it that well. It says now she flies with the butterflies. I thought that was really like that. Like,
That's nice.
so that includes that kind of saying, which I thought would be appropriate for Melba. I think that would be more appropriate, and I can venture it's going to be a lot less expensive than the first quote that I was sent.
Tara, I liked your idea of putting it on the bird blind. I mean, the bird blind is on the trail,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like to have it, on the bird blind. I think that would be nice as well.
Yeah, I think so too. And
It
that
keeps
would
it off the
basically,
ground, no worry for mowing,
right.
Yeah. Well,
And
as long as we're discussing mowing, and I guess I'll have to unload a little bit more on Public Works. The other problem with the blind is that it's never mowed in back of the blind or in front of the blind. I was out there actually several weeks ago just cutting back pokeweed, which is growing on front and back of the blind, and actually was blocking the ramp leading up to the blind because nobody takes care of it. They just they won't get off their mowers and do the trimming and the stuff that needs to be done to keep the place clean and maintained.
So that's something, Tara, I don't know if we can find out more just about what the expectation is. Like, what is the expectation for Public Works, as far as, are they being directed to simply do, a basic mowing? Or are they also being directed to use more handheld devices and the details that Chuck's talking about?
Mm-hmm. I mean, my understanding is that they do the basic mowing, and that if there is handwork that has to be done, they can do it. It's just that they don't necessarily always have the manpower to do it at every spot. So that's my understanding at this point of it. I do have calls with Carl, so I can definitely ask him that the next time we speak, which is going to be in 2 weeks. So I can ask him about how that works. In terms of the bird blind, if it needs repairs, I think probably DPW could do some of the work. I think if we need to move it and change it around, we might be looking at hiring outside.
Yeah.
Not that that should deter it or influence it either way, just so that you know, like there's different scopes of what the work would be. If we want to put the plaque on the bird blind, that to me sounds great because it's like you need to have the bird blind done to put the plaque up. So it's like, again, we're working as, to two things at once, which I always like to do.
Yeah. I mean, I know it's more ideal to have the bird blind in another location. But is it a problem to have it where it is? Like, as far as people still using it, maybe is it still valuable, but not as valuable as it would be if it was moved? I mean, Anne Marie, what is your take on that?
I think it's valuable. I think fixing up would be great. I just echo what Chuck was saying, because you have a bird blind, you have all these weeds growing up in the place where you're trying to view from. So if we kept it, well maintained front and back, we'd be in good shape. But that's going to happen wherever they put it.
Yeah.
Right.
You're right.
Well, I can definitely talk to Carl about that. I'm going to put that on my list right now of things.
And then
Okay.
I do agree with Chuck. I think we do need to talk about how to preserve that pond, because it will be filled in with cattails and willows and other things.
Okay.
It's happening fast, actually.
Yeah.
So they spread pretty fast.
This is a dumb question again, maybe, Chuck, but let me ask, or Anne Marie, maybe you might know better. Are there specific types of like landscapers that do that kind of work, that know how to go into aquatic types of areas? Is that something I can look into, or is that not necessary?
oh
Do you think?
gosh, I don't.
Wow, I don't have a clear answer for that. I mean, I'm just wondering, we've taken more. They've done remediation. I'm thinking of around large bodies of water in the past. Maybe they would have some thoughts on that.
Okay. All right.
What do you think, Chuck?
I think that's going to need some investigation.
Okay. Let me try to
I don't know
investigate
the
that
answer.
before the next meeting, because that's something that maybe we can get done first, is that type of work. So let me do some digging on that.
Yeah, I'm not sure how you deal with cattails, for example. I don't know whether you can go in with hip boots and just pull them out by the roots. I suspect you're going to have to spray them.
Yeah,
Okay.
Nitrogen, you'll have cattails.
Cattails are indicative of nitrogen and phosphorus overloads,
Mm,
and it's just fertilizer runoff.
got it. All right. I have on my list to do some digging on that. I think
There are
that's-
pond management companies out there that do stuff, but I'm not sure they take like one pond at Negri. You know what I mean?
right.
I don't know what, a lot of these places do lots of pond management for many communities and multiple ponds and things like that. And
That's
a
a
lot
good
of them,
point. Yeah.
a lot of them use chemicals too. So I'm not sure people will be too excited about that.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
I don't know a lot about it. I'm going to have to do some research, but I'll do that prior to the OSAC meeting, and I'll let you all know at our next meeting what I can find.
Thank you.
Okay. Great. Moving on to our next item on the agenda. The grant for the green infrastructure and trail development at Naaman Williams.
So we still have our grant for our, we just got our grant. We haven't really started much on it. Vanessa did go out after one of the last major rainstorms and sent me some photos, which I have saved, and that's good baseline information to have. The next thing we need to do, and I'd like to do it maybe, like I think I said, the end of September, early October, is have a group of us go out there and really start walking it and trying to figure out where would where are the areas on the existing path that could use treatment from stormwater runoff and ponding? And what are some ideas for green infrastructure that we have that we can use in those areas? That's the first thing. The second thing is then to get into the wooded trail area and see if we can kind of really start conceptualizing the trail for that area. But I think first focusing on the green infrastructure part would be good. So I know Jignasha said that she wants to participate in that part. I'll send an email out to everyone with some dates for mid to end September, and we will get out there and see what we can figure out. I think that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely think so.
All right, so that's the plan for that. So not much on that right now, but it'll start picking up soon.
Yeah, and the pictures, I went out right after a rainstorm, so we have all like captured where the puddles are along the path.
Yes.
So I'm happy to share those.
Yeah, that's a big help.
Vanessa, I'd love to see,
Pardon?
Vanessa, I would love to see those photos.
Tara, can I share them real quick right now?
Yeah, I was looking to see. I thought I
I
saved
have
them in
them
here.
pulled up. If I
Oh,
can
you
just,
have them. Okay.
yeah.
Are you able to share? If you look at the top right next to the leave button, do you see share?
Hold on. Top right.
Right next to the red leave button to the left of it.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So if you hit
That
share,
has show participants, and I have open share tray. Is that it? The open share tray?
mine just says share, but see if you can open the share tray. Oh,
Are you?
there
you
we
guys able
go.
to see?
Yep.
Okay. Did it get bigger for you?
Yes.
Okay. So this, like you see in front of the bench here, water is collecting is a muddy spot there. There were some like small, like little divots in this, this path. Some muddy spots where you can see people are kind of going off into the grassy area. This puddle collection. And there's a few spots like this where really it covers the width of the path. And I've been here in the winter as well, and that's ice. And so
Right.
that's, it's unsafe.
Where
And people
are we on?
Pardon?
Where is this? Which park?
Naaman Williams.
Oh, okay.
And yeah, it's just like, muddy spots there. Going towards the new playground area, which looks really lovely. And you see this piece of equipment here, it's like its own rain garden.
Yeah.
So this is something definitely, either you might want to move that, and make that a rain garden, or address it.
Yeah, this is really helpful having these. And I would say if anyone's out there at Naaman Williams and you see anything that you think is worth taking a picture of while we're in this grant period, I would just, even if you think maybe it won't be helpful, but you're not sure, I would just say take a picture, because it's nice. It's good to have like kind of pictures from different seasons and be able to kind of trend that.
Oh, and I missed a couple from here. So, and Chuck, one of our meetings, we talked about the garden, and you said the garden was abandoned. And I was like, no, I don't think so. But when I was there, you were right. There was not action. There was like no sign of activity happening in the garden at this time.
So this summer, they're not gardening this summer. I didn't know whether it was a seasonal thing or whether, but
Yeah.
you were just there recently and.
This was about a month ago, I guess.
Okay,
Yeah, about a month ago.
It's the growing season.
July 17th.
Yeah, well, I mean, if that garden was being used, it would be used now, and it's not apparently. So
yeah, there's some more mud along the trail, and there's a lot of water around this bleacher.
Yeah.
So that is another making it inaccessible for use. Yeah. But it was great. It was great though. Like the park was being used. And people were out barbecuing, people were out playing basketball, walking around. It was really nice, just to see a park in use.
All right. So we'll get working on that soon. Like September is a good month to really get going on that. So I'll organize that kind of trip and we'll get going.
Okay. The next item on the agenda is establishing quarterly hikes and community events. Environmental education walk, partnership with the Environmental Commission. I know that Zach from the Astronomy Club is very interested in continued partnership with us. We had that successful hike last month with them. He's interested in doing one in September and in October, and taking advantage of the night skies and getting people on the trails as well.
Great.
Yeah, I just want to say briefly, Vanessa, to jump in, that it was very successful with Zach. And there was a lot of people who went on the hike with us prior to being able to see the heavens. And they were very excited about the whole thing. So it's definitely great. And I just wanted to highlight for those who weren't there, Vanessa did a wonderful job introducing who we were, what we do, to the assembled crowd there. So thank you, Vanessa. You're very prepared, and it was a great presentation. Just simple, to the point, and people got it. And that was great.
Oh, good. That's really good. One thing Vanessa and I had talked about was, trying to put together, maybe what we'll do is put together a Google sheet where we can organize some quarterly trails walk so that we're kind of ahead of the game and prepared for it. But right now in this upcoming few months, we have definitely Zach wants to do the astronomy walks, 2 of them. So we have that. The other thing is that the Environmental Commission really does want to do a partnership walk with the Trails Committee. And they kind of want to focus on, green infrastructure, or where green infrastructure would be helpful, or anything that they can tie in, like a physical activity with environmental issues. So I know they are hoping to maybe do that in September, October as well. And what they wanted me to ask was if you all had any ideas for where that kind of walk should be, and if there's a way, like any ideas of what we can talk about. Or I mean, my first thought is we could definitely talk about the grant at Naaman Williams and walk with them there and show where green infrastructure and why we're doing this grant. That's one option. But if you think another trail would be better, that's fine too.
Tara, what's the main goal again?
They like doing events for the public. A lot of them, though, tend to be workshops or lectures or things like that, because it's talking about environmental issues or energy conservation. So they want to do an activity where it's like a physical activity that people can, walk around, or do something like that, that also really highlights what their mission is, and, or specific environmental issues, just something to kind of host an event for the public.
Okay. Lots of choices.
There is. There definitely is. That's for sure. One thing that they're very focused on is the tree canopy. So maybe that is maybe we could do one of our forested trail walks. Is that going to work though in September, October? Because we could talk about the urban heat island effect. We could talk about the tree canopy. So that's one idea. We could definitely just do Naaman Williams and explain why we have this grant and what we're looking to achieve, because of course it's environmental in nature. What else? I mean, there's a lot we could do, but I guess I was thinking off the top of your heads, in September, October, is there any particular area that it's like, wow, this is a great place to be at this time of year?
I think we're all biased to our adopted trails. I know I
Right.
am.
Right.
'Cause I'm just thinking about, Bunker Hill, you kind of going through the tulip poplars, and then you kind of go around the wide, and then you go down by the cliffs. That could be nice. I think that, Negri is nice. You kind of just come into it, right? It's a nice big open space, but if you're looking for some trails as well, I guess Butler is just the parking, and Butler's tricky, but not impossible.
Well, that and also it's the audience I think that we'll be reaching is not maybe normally hikers. We might get more people that are really interested in learning about this environmental topic. So I'd like it to be, for the first one at least, kind of a more easy trail walk, but that has an environmental topic.
Well, actually, I'm going to be sort of limited in what I can do for a while. But I was thinking that actually it would be a good thing to get the Environmental Commission out onto Negri or Griggstown and explain to them the history of what was done there, and explain the problems that we have in maintaining that area as an environmental resource. And I would be happy to work with you. I just don't know when, whether I could do it. As I say, I'd really like to talk to the committee on a citizens level when it's appropriate on the agenda about this. But I think that that, and also taking the Environmental Commission, educating the Environmental Commission about our forest trails would be very important. We have quite a few native trees. We have many species of native trees, some of which are in trouble, but are also environmentally important issues. A lot of our forest trails go around our streams in Franklin, and we have major streams in Franklin. And the trees are there. They reduce erosion. They clean up the water from runoff. They are environmentally important, and I feel like it's important to protect and preserve these areas, and to inform the public about the importance of these areas in Franklin. Honestly, I would like to say that Franklin to me is a unique place. It's sort of rare to have what we have. We have a large park area within Franklin. We have a canal that runs all the way through it with environmentally important species growing around its boundaries. And Franklin has done a marvelous job of preserving open space as well as farmland in the area. And I think it's important to inform the public about what we have and what we need to do to help protect and preserve it.
So what I'll do, I took down the notes of the forested trail, the Naaman Williams Park Trail, and the grasslands. I'll bring it up to the Environmental Commission in our next meeting, which is not this upcoming Monday, but the following Monday, and I'll see which one they prefer, and then I can organize it with you all, I think.
That sounds good. I know Zach had proposed the dates of September 9th and October 7th as the next astronomy night hike and astronomy night. So I don't know if anybody has any input regarding those dates. If anybody sees any problems with those dates, or if it's okay to move forward with them.
What were they again, Vanessa?
September 9th and October 7th.
Okay.
And it would be 9 o'clock. That's what that's a proposal.
I don't see any problems. I mean, I can reach out, I can just kind of duplicate the flyers that we did from last time and send them to rec and have them get up on the rec desk.
Okay.
Wait, do those flyers include a walk?
Yes, now, yes, it's on there now, yeah.
All right, because it's going to get darker sooner. So we have to really project what time we want to start those 2 walks, because there'll be a big difference between both of those months and now. I mean, it's getting darker earlier.
Right.
And we don't want people tripping over
So
themselves.
we could do the lights. We could, but I think I'd like to start it earlier, like you, Anne Marie. We need to have almost like a sunset hike. You
Yeah.
know, like essentially what we want them to be sunset hikes. So to figure out when sunset is and do it, so they get to enjoy the sunset through the hike.
Yeah. that would
I
be
like
good.
that idea. And on the flyer, if we could just make it like a little more obvious about the hike, you know, just maybe like a little hike picture, you know, because I know you have the night sky. If we could just add a picture for the hike as well.
Mhm.
Because a lot of people who came, they were wearing like flip-flops.
Yes. Oh, it was hard. It was hard.
It said on, I think it said on the flyer too, like you must wear appropriate footwear, but I don't, maybe they
They
don't,
came for the
you know.
astronomy. It's okay. They came for the astronomy, like, oh, we can hike. They were focused on the astronomy, but they did it. It was great.
Yeah, they were troopers.
So on September 9th, sunsets at 7:18.
Wow.
And on October, what was it, October 7th? Sorry, I gotta just type the date in.
You know what,
October
Karen, he had
7th.
proposed 9 o'clock for this month, so maybe come September and October, he'll want it
right.
earlier.
That's
Yeah,
right.
October 7th, it's 6:31.
Wow. That's right, Zach. So Zach would want to start earlier too, I guess.
Yeah,
Yeah.
There's no point in having all that dead time. People would just go nuts.
right. Well, you know what, I'll put it on the flyer, and when I send it to him, I'll just tell him in the email, this is when sunset is on those dates, so please, like, tell me what time is appropriate, and then
That's
if we
great.
do our walk a half hour before that or an hour before that, is that what we need?
Yeah, that's fine.
An hour or a half hour, you think?
I would say an hour.
Okay,
Yeah, because you have to organize people and
okay.
Yeah.
That works. Okay, so then we can figure it out that way. That'll work. Okay.
And I guess so, and then the date for the other hike, the Tara that you were talking about, you were saying September for that one as well?
September, October, I'll talk to them and see what they're thinking, but I think if it was in October, that'd be fine. If it was later or, yeah, a day, you know, I'll see what they want. They originally said September, October, but I think they're pretty flexible.
Okay. I was gonna say, because if they want to do something, you know, in conjunction, like if they want to do something in conjunction with the astronomy nights, because those are already at, you know, at Briggstown.
Right, that's
Right.
true. Yeah,
So
I can ask them that.
it's a possibility, not necessary, but just.
Yeah. All right, I'll
Um,
ask them that.
Okay, so we were talking about like wanting to kind of establish quarterly hikes and just an opportunity for like everybody on the committee to, you know, have a chance to kind of help lead a hike, you know, on your trail. Maybe we could just figure out like pace the, you know, kind of spread them out throughout the course of the year. Something Tara and I were talking about, just wanting to, because we kind of, when they're last minute, it's harder to get them advertised. And instead of trying to get all of us to be on every hike, if we just have like 3 people, two to 3 people. Like I know, like when Anne Marie and I were kind of figuring out, you want somebody to be the lead, the caboose, and then somebody to help with the sign in, because that's where we got messed up at the astronomy hike, because we left and then people were coming and there's nobody manning the sign in. So that would be ideal, but you could do it with 2 people.
Mhm.
And just wondering, like, you know, when people in the committee, you know, if you've already thought about it, let us know if you want some time to think about it. You know, what are you comfortable with? What are you not comfortable with? And just wanting to kind of get some dates out there, so we can have, you know, hikes scheduled and continue to have Parks and Recreation help us with the advertising of them.
Mhm.
So just, I'm curious what people's thoughts are. If you need more time.
no, it sounds good to have a structure. I think it'll really help us plan much better.
So it sounds like for the upcoming quarter, I think we are pretty set because we got the 2 astronomy hikes and the environmental one, but
Right.
maybe I can make a sheet starting for the winter quarter. Does that make sense? And then I can send that around?
Sounds good.
I think, yeah, these are both Tara, these are both evening hikes, and they're all at Griggstown. So I don't know if, the autumn is just such a beautiful time
Yeah.
to get out and see the autumn leaves. So like I know
Okay.
I personally would be open to doing a different hike, like on the Bunker Hill Trail.
Okay.
In that window.
Okay, I will try and get that sheet out then pretty soon.
Mark, what do you like? I know September 9th doesn't work for you. Evening hikes are generally good for you. What do you prefer?
I don't know. I'll have to get back to you.
Okay.
Yeah, just as a broader term, right? Like, I appreciate all this. I mean, I don't want to turn this into the me thing, but the trail promotion thing is not the primary thing for me, right? I know it's a big drive here. That is not my big drive, and that's not what brought me to this. So, I think we spend a lot of time on that. It's great for people who want to do that, and that's their motivation. Great, but it's not the thing that drives me for this. So.
Understood. Okay. So moving on to the next thing on the agenda, we have the old business. We already talked about the bird blind at Negri. Is there anything else, Terry, you wanted to add to that?
No.
The trail walks and events. We talked about the astronomy event on the 22nd.
Yeah, we basically covered that.
The Firefly hike was on the 8th, and that was also successful. Getting people out and checking out the fireflies. The next item on the agenda is the volunteer stewardship maintenance event for late early fall.
I haven't been able to get anything done on that just because I've been finalizing some other projects. So I'll have to move that to the next meeting, and it's kind of just in the conceptual process, stage right now. So we might have to move the time, but I absolutely will work on it as soon as possible.
The last item is the updates on trail conditions. I already mentioned earlier that the Franklin Park Trail is just very overgrown. And it's something that would be very hard to do with just shears. So I think having some equipment like electric shears would be helpful to have a Public Works get out there.
Okay, sounds good.
Butler Road Trail, they finally did pick up the automotive trash
Right.
in the parking lot. That will look like about a 3-month hiatus in doing that. But I was not able to go on any of the trails. I did notice that Public Works has cleared the poison ivy away from the signs, so you can actually see the trail signs now on the road that are marking the trail entrances to that. Let's see. That's about all I have. The only other.
Chuck, I meant to also add to new business to give you time to share your current situation. So please feel free to do that now as well.
Okay, thank you. Actually, yeah, thanks very much. As some of you know, Diana and I will be moving to Montclair, and unfortunately, I'm sure that means that I will no longer be able to participate as a member of the Trails Committee. However, we haven't closed on our house here in Franklin yet, and I've paid our August property taxes, so I'm still a Franklin resident. I don't know how much for long, but I want you to know that I would like to still stay engaged. I really, Franklin has been our home for over 45 years, and 45 years worth of property taxes. I felt like sort of I owned part of this trails, and whatever. Turns out, I guess we were just renting them. But on the other hand, we've invested a lot in them. And I actually want to tell everybody how proud I am to have been a resident of Franklin and be able to participate in doing all the good things that Franklin has done for our trails and preserving our forests and preserving our farmlands. You live in a unique place, and I hope you will always work to protect it. For me, I would like to stay engaged with you, and I would like to, continue to participate in trails walks if you'll have me. When we can do so, we're going to be pretty damn busy for the next year, I'm afraid. But anyway, I would like to do this. So I have. It's been a great learning experience for me as a biologist to be able to see what our local ecosystems are like and learn about them and learn about how they're changing and evolving and so on. So this has been Franklin, among other things, has been a great classroom for me in that regard. So anyway, I think this will probably be my last meeting as a Trails Committee member. I want to thank you for having me. It's been great working with all of you, and I just really appreciate all the things that we've been able to do together. So, thank you.
Thanks, Chuck.
Thanks, Chuck. You've been a huge
you.
asset to our committee. Thank you.
Yeah, Chuck, it's not going to be the same. And you can always view us, you can always look us up being part of the public, so you can always have
I would look forward to going to come to your same meetings on Zoom and so on. And I look forward to meeting up with you when we can participate in trails events down here in Franklin. Quite frankly, I think where we're moving in Montclair, it looks like a wonderful place to live. It's 5 minutes from our grandkids, but it doesn't really offer the same opportunities for me to get out into the woods and learn and look around that Franklin has.
Yeah.
And I can tell you, we will be kayaking on the canal for quite some time to come. We're going to bring our grandkids down here because this is really the best place to do it.
Yeah.
So
it's a safe place too. It's, very gentle water.
And the towpath is one of the best bike riding places around. I don't know where we're going to ride bikes in Montclair. It's just straight up and down. So
yeah.
And,
Chuck, when did you start serving on trails? What year did you start?
Not that long ago. A lot of you are far more experienced and had much longer tenures than I've had. I think
2019
was probably when it was.
Okay.
So,
Well, you've made your mark. Thank you.
Well, Chuck, you and Diane have been such an asset, so you will totally be missed. If you want to commute, I'll contribute to your gas.
Aw.
thank you, Jim.
How about an e-bike? Let me get him an
We'll give you
e-bike.
Yes, an
Very
e-bike.
nice, very kind.
Chrissy, I got an e-bike.
Chuck, you brought a lot of humor and knowledge to this committee, and you'll be missed.
Well, thank you, Phil. I really appreciate it. Thank you for your incredible public service. I think that you're one of the reasons we are where we are, and it's at a really good spot.
Well, thank you. That's very kind.
Okay.
Well, it's kind of hard to continue from here.
I'm
Vanessa.
sorry.
Yeah, I think perhaps I will sign off at this point and let you get on with the business, but hope to see you all soon. Take care.
All right. Thank you, Chuck.
Any more trails updates?
I don't have any updates.
The only update I had with Butler Road was that I did the paint blazes on the yellow trail and put the trails maps there. And so the yellow trail paint is done at Butler.
Okay.
I do not have an update.
Okay.
Who has an update?
No, Jim said he does not have an update.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Okay, Mark, I'm going to assume you don't have an update either.
No, I did put a point of new business in the chat.
Um,
I was looking to find out what happened to the Van Cleef Road bike path continuation.
oh,
The
I
last
missed that.
message we had on it was that things were awaiting some other things to be done, but that was June 9th, 2021. And I
Hmm.
don't see it in our current pathways and trails plan, so I don't want it to get lost.
I thought I saw something about a grant proposal. Do you know, you would know about that, Tara. Do you remember that?
I have not heard about that. Maureen, oh, I'm sorry, went out for a minute. I know Maureen is working on that, so let me see what's going on with it.
Yeah, it's good to keep that going, Mark, so I appreciate that.
Mhm.
Yeah, I got all excited when I read it, and then I realized it was a proposal. I thought we had gotten a grant.
Oh.
Okay.
Tara, we can't hear you. Tara, we can't hear you.
I'm sorry, what'd you say? I missed it.
We couldn't hear you.
Oh, I just realized I was on mute. Did you have a question?
No, you were just saying something, and we couldn't hear what you were saying.
Oh, no, my husband walked in. I was just telling him I'm on mute.
Okay, so we need to, Tara, we can follow up on that, maybe before in our next meeting, we can add that to the agenda.
Yep, I'm just writing it on my
Looking at
list.
that.
Yep,
Perfect.
I'll follow up.
Okay, so with no further trail updates, can we have a motion to adjourn?
I move that we adjourn.
Upon
A second?
second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Right.
Any
All right,
nays
everybody.
or
Thank you so
abstentions?
much.
All
Have a
right.
good night.